Well, hey folks, this is John with Ozarks Backroads. We're here in the Ozarks Backroads World Headquarters garage today. I wanted to do a quick video and talk a little bit about some issues I've had recently on a trip that I took down to Louisiana. I had some issues with the Tusk tank bag. It was my first trip with that. I also had some navigation issues, some GPS issues. So I want to do a quick video and discuss some of these problems and some solutions I think that I've found that are going to work out pretty well. So stick around. Here we are on our on the mighty red sled here, our Suzuki 650 XT or V-Strom, and this is how I've traveled for years, just with a cell phone, using Google Maps, and then we got a power port up here. Both of my bikes have a power port, and I can charge my phone. And this all works really good until the skies open up and it goes to raining on you. At that point, it's a problem. You know, even though a cell phone is somewhat water resistant or waterproof, you're not going to want to ride all day long in the rain with your cell phone out. Or I'm not. These things are expensive. So this is a Samsung S21 cell phone here. It's about a year and a half old, I guess, maybe something like that. I don't know. I probably gave $500 or $600 or maybe a little more for that. So that's pretty expensive as far as the Ozarks Backroads is concerned. That's not something I'm going to leave out in the rain all day long. So what I did was I knew that on this trip that I was going on down in Louisiana, it was probably going to rain. There was a tropical low system down here in eastern part of Texas that had just flooded Texas and Louisiana. That thing was hanging around. So I knew I was going to get in some rain. So what I wound up doing is taking my I bought this Tusk Olympus tank bag here. I had it mounted up here on the tank. So my thinking was, when it goes to raining, I'll just take the phone off and slip it inside my Tusk bag with the clear top on it, like that. Zip it all up, and it's also got a way to route the charger cord inside, so I could actually plug it up. And I thought, well, that'll work really slick. You know, I'll be able to ride in the rain and still navigate. So I had my phone in here, and the skies opened up on me. I had my power cord ran in, and it's a relatively waterproof entry. It's got a gasket and all, and that all worked real good. The problem I had was that this thing totally fogged up. This clear plastic on top would just fog over, and as you ride in the rain, this bag will start to draw moisture inside. Will start to get damp and get some moisture in it, and then it's just totally fogged up at that point. For the rest of the day, you're pretty much done as far as being able to see through this. I would take a rag, a microfiber towel, and wipe all this out in here. But it would just fog right back up from the moisture that the bag was getting in it. And I rode in the rain for like 4 days. It just rained constantly. So it was a real hassle, and I wasn't able to see my phone to navigate. So that was a problem. I was traveling in areas that I had never been to, through larger towns and stuff. You need to be able to see your phone when you get to the highway interchanges and stuff. So that just did not work at all. The other issue with this bag, and I don't know if it's with all of the tank bags that have a clear top on them, or if it's just because this one is black, but when the sun is out, you cannot have your phone inside here. It will overheat almost within 10 or 15 minutes. This whole bag just becomes like a little oven. I mean, it gets really hot inside here and in here where the phone's at. So you can't put your phone in it when the sun's out, and when it's raining, you can put your phone in it, but it all fogs up and you can't see to navigate. So this is an issue that I struggled with the whole trip. So I got to thinking, well, maybe I just go ahead and buy a Garmin GPS and mount it up here and hardwire it, and hardwire both bikes where I could take my my Garmin off of one and put it on the other and back and forth. Those Garmins are really expensive. The real reason I didn't want to buy a GPS is I like to make my own maps. I have several apps that I use. I draw my own maps, make my own trails, and save them. And I can use those trails offline when there's no cell service. I can use my trails that I make. There's just a lot of things I can do with my phone that if I was to go with a GPS, all you get with a GPS is if you buy a Garmin, you just get Garmin maps. That's it. So I didn't really want to spend that kind of money on a GPS, and all I'm going to have is just the Garmin maps, a dedicated Garmin maps, and not be able to do the other things that I want to do. So what to do? My first thought was, well, maybe somebody makes a GPS unit that runs Google Maps, right? You can mount it up, it's waterproof, you can hardwire it up, and you can run Google Maps. That would be cool. Maybe you could hotspot off of your phone to that unit and get live updates. Get a Wi-Fi connection or a Bluetooth connection from the GPS to your phone and be able to get live updates and have Google Maps just like you would have on your phone. So I went to searching. Well, nobody makes that device. It doesn't exist. As far as I can tell, it doesn't exist. What else can I do? Well, there's a whole category of cell phones that I knew nothing about and I really didn't even know it was a thing. It turns out there's a category of cell phones. They're called rugged phones, rugged cell phones, and they're kind of a thing. There are a bunch of manufacturers, 4 or 5 that are pretty popular, kind of leading in the industry, and they've been doing these things for a long time. The unique features about these phones and all the rugged phones are kind of pretty much similar. They're waterproof. This one is, all of them that I looked at were IP68 rated, and most of them were 69K rated, which this one is as well, which means not only can you submerge it for an hour or 2 hours or whatever at 4 feet or 6 feet or whatever it is depth. The 69K rating, it's also pressure. You can stream water on it under pressure, like with a hose. It's just a higher rating. So these things are totally waterproof. You can leave them out in the rain. You can ride with them all day long. It's not going to be an issue. The other thing that's nice about these, they're designed for like survivalists, military use, really extreme. They're very tough. You're not going to break them. They're not going to vibrate and have issues from being mounted on a motorcycle. They're very durable in that respect. And the thing that I really like about them is they come with very large batteries. They're made to run for days on end without being needed to be charged. All of them are Android operating systems. This one here has a 10,600 milliamp battery in it. And there are quite a few models released this year that I saw when I was shopping that were 15,000 milliamp batteries, 20,000 milliamp batteries. A phone like this Samsung, a typical iPhone or smartphone like a Samsung or an iPhone will have a battery of maybe 4,000 to 5,000 milliamp hours. 5,000 would be a pretty good size battery. So 10,600 on this one, and you can get a lot more than that. The phone is thick. It's about double the thickness of this little Samsung almost, and it's probably twice the weight. But that's not an issue. It's going to be I'm going to use it as a GPS. I spent the day on the bike about a week ago. I have an app that I use. I make my own maps. and for local use here. And I was out on the bike, and I had this thing set up, and I was following my maps for total time on the bike was about 9.5 hours that day. I started very early in the morning, got in late in the afternoon, early evening. Display was on all day long. I was using my map. So I had over 9.5 hours of time, of screen time on this. And when I got home, it was charged fully when I left. When I got home, it was at 69%. The battery was at 69%. And I had ran it with the screen on for 9.5 hours. So I don't even need to worry about this, charging this, or a connection that could get water if you're charging it. That was another issue. With the GPS units, you've got a waterproof charging connection. With the cell phone, you don't. When you open up open it up to put your Type-C plug in there, you've bypassed the waterproofness, and you can get water in there. But I don't need to worry about that, because this will run probably 2 days at least, or more, screen on, following maps and whatnot. So I had 69% or 68% when I got home. The phone's been on for like 6 days since then. It's just been on with the Wi-Fi hooked to my Wi-Fi in the house, and I've been playing around with it, and it's at 54% now, and it's been 6 days since I took the trip. I haven't charged it since before I left on that trip that day. So I'm not going to worry about charging this thing. I don't need to. So if you enable the screen switch in your settings, when you turn the phone sideways, it'll rotate the screen so it'll still be like it was orientation wise. That gives me a better view of the dash. So on this phone, I'm not using a SIM card. I'm not buying a data plan. I load my Google Maps. I load them offline maps, and that's what I travel on. A lot of the places that I like to travel, there's no cell service, or you're in and out of cell service. So I always load my offline maps for the areas that I'm going to be traveling in. And we'll take a look at how to load offline maps, and also some of these phones on Amazon. Maybe if you're thinking about getting a GPS, this might be something you want to look into before you drop a lot of coin on a expensive Garmin unit or something like that. We can look at these on Amazon. That's where I bought mine. That's a pretty good place to shop. It's hard to find stuff cheaper than you can find it on Amazon. Give you a pretty good idea. So I'm just going to go in here on my search bar and just do a search on rugged cell phone right here. And it pulls up all these rugged cell phones. I did a lot of research on YouTube, looking at YouTube videos, reviews on these before I made my decision. I didn't want to spend a lot of money. I want it to be cheaper than a GPS unit. You can kind of see the prices on these. They're not nearly as expensive as these high dollar cell phones that most people buy. Those things are really expensive, and honestly, they're not worth it. When these phones, the performance is nearly as good. You can't tell the difference. Way cheaper. Now they are bigger. They're larger physically and heavier. So Oukitel right here, they have a lot of phones. This is a leading manufacturer. So here's one. This was released this year. It's $319. It only has an 8300 milliamp battery. That's kind of small for this class of phone, but it's still a pretty good size battery. Here's one this is the one that I wound up buying right here. With a 10,600 milliamp battery. It's got 128 gigabyte of memory, 8 gig of RAM. Runs Android 11 on this phone, IP68 and 69K. So it's the WP16, the Oukitel. But there are a lot of, here's another Oukitel, the WP15S. It's got a 15,600 milliamp battery, milliamp hour battery in it, so it would run even longer than the one I have. All of these that I've seen are at least IP68, and most of them are 69K rated. So you can ride with them all day long in the rain. It's not going to hurt them. You don't have to worry about it. This phone here is only $229. So most of these phones run the MediaTek processors, 8-core, around 2 gigahertz processors on the speed. They're pretty quick. You know, they're right in there with your top tier cell phones, and the performance is really good. I haven't noticed any issues with performance on mine. Mine isn't even as good as a lot of these. I kind of went for one step down on the processor, just because you don't need all this horsepower to run Google Maps. It's ridiculous. This is 100 times more processing than processor power than your typical GPS unit has. You just don't need it, but you got it. So there you go. Now on my phone, I'm not going to have a SIM card or buy a data plan or anything. I'm just using offline maps. That's the same thing I do with my cell phone when I'm traveling. I always load my maps offline. So if I don't have a cell service, why I can still navigate with my GPS. I always do that. I've done that for years, and it's worked well for me. So I don't want a device I have to buy a data plan for. That's not cheap, and you know how I am. I like cheap. But you can get a look at these phones and read the specs and do some research, watch some reviews on YouTube. If you find something there that strikes your fancy, why, you can check it all out. There are videos on all of these reviews, but they're a lot cheaper than a GPS unit. For sure, and a lot more versatile. You can run Gia maps. You can run anything in the Android Play Store on these, just like the Apple Store on your Apple phone. Literally tens of thousands of apps, if not hundreds of thousands. So the things you can do with a cell phone are limitless. And that makes them a lot more valuable to me than a GPS unit that only runs the GPS maps that come with it. So we'll take a look at the offline maps. It's possible that not everybody knows about offline maps on Google Maps and how to use them. It's a really powerful tool. Even if you've got a data plan, it's really good to have your offline maps loaded in the areas that you're going to be traveling in, just in case you get in an area that doesn't have cell service. You'll still have your Google Map working for you. We've got our phone set up here. I didn't really have a stand to hold this phone, but I did have a batch of bananas. So the bananas are now our phone stand. In case you didn't know, I'm kind of cheap around here, so that's pretty cheap, a batch of bananas. Not too bad. So I've got my, we'll open up our Google Maps here and take a look at offline maps. So we'll take a look at the offline function here on Google Maps and how that works. So I've opened up Google Maps here, and if I go up here to my little icon on the search bar on the end, the J's for me, it'll open up a drop screen here. A little over halfway down, there's a line that says offline maps. If I click that, this will show me the offline maps that I've saved already. And if you've never used them, then this will just be a blank area down here. So you can see here, I always give them a name. I name my maps, the area that the coverage that the map has, the coverage area. I usually do a whole state. I'll map a whole state. If the map will only cover a quarter of the state, then I'll do 4 maps for the state. Northeast, northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast, something like that. So we'll do a map real quick. I'm going to do a state that I haven't done yet. So to load your maps up, your offline maps. You pull up this screen and then it says select your own map here at the top. I'll do that. It opens up Google Maps there and it'll show you where you're at. So I'm going to pinch down and I'm in Missouri here. I'm going to run over here to Kansas. So I'm going to put state line, and I got all the way through Kansas. This is Oklahoma down here. So I've got all of eastern half of Kansas, or third, in this box right here. So that's good. So that's what I want, Kansas, eastern Kansas. So I'm going to hit download right here. Now I am connected to my, I'm on my Wi-Fi at the house. So I don't need a SIM card to do that. I'm just connected to my router here at the house, so I have internet. I'm going to hit download, and it is downloading. All right, so I've loaded my eastern Kansas map. It automatically named it map 22. If it's the first one that you've ever loaded, it'll be map 1. But I know that's it because all the rest of them I've already renamed. So I'm going to select this map 22, and there it is. It's 301 megabytes of data for that eastern Kansas. So I'm going to go back, and here on map 22 that I just downloaded, I'm going to click on the little 3 dots there next to it, and I'm going to select rename on that drop down menu, and then I'm going to name this, back that up, I'm going to name this Eastern Kansas and do save. All right, so there it is, Eastern Kansas. If I open it, there's the map of Eastern Kansas. Okay, so we've saved the entire eastern part of Kansas. We've got an offline map saved. I'm going to do another one now. Do my own map here. I'm going to blow that up. So here's what we just did, was eastern Kansas. It looks like Wichita was just barely in the western edge, so I'm going to slide Wichita over to the eastern edge. And again, I've got some of Oklahoma, a little bit of Oklahoma and a little bit of Nebraska up here. So now I've got like the central strip right down the center of Kansas. I've overlapped where I was the last time because I was almost to Wichita the last time, so I've got it in there now. I'm going to hit download again. So it's downloading, and you'll see here I've got map 23 now. It says downloading. So that'll be our central Kansas map. Let that download. Take a look at it. It's about 50%. 65. Okay, there it is. It's finished downloading. It says it was 158 megabytes. Okay, so I'm going to go back here. So now I'll have another map, map 23. I need to rename that to Central Kansas. So I'm going to, the 3 little dots there, and rename. And then X to the front of that, and we'll say Central Kansas, and save. There it is, Central Kansas. If I open that up, it'll show that I've got a strip right down the center of Kansas. So I'm going to finish up Kansas now, and select your own map. Blow that up there where I want it. I had Wichita. Just got a little bit of eastern Colorado showing there, and then Oklahoma in the bottom, Nebraska in the top. This will be the western half. I'll hit download, and again now I have map 24 downloading, and I'll have to rename that. So we got western Kansas loaded up here. It says map 24 for western Kansas. I'm going to 3-dot it, rename it. X back to the start, and we're going to do western and save that. So now I have eastern Kansas, western Kansas, and central Kansas all loaded up in my offline maps. along with a bunch of other states that I've saved here. I'm going to turn my Wi-Fi off. So I don't have a SIM card, I have no cell connection, and I've got my Wi-Fi turned off. So I have no way of getting any data here at all. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to open Google Maps. In order to use my offline maps, since I have no data, I have to use offline maps. I'm going to go up here and hit my icon again on the search bar and go down here to offline maps in the center, and I'm just going to select that. Okay, and then that opens up all my maps. I'm just going to arrow back here. Now I've enabled my offline maps by doing that. So if I hit go, I'm going to go from my location. I'm going to choose a destination. I'm going to say, let's go to Dodge City, Kansas. Dodge City, Kansas, right here. And it's laid out my course. It's automatically looked through all of my saved maps that I've got, and it found everything it needed there. It found the Kansas map. I had my Missouri map already loaded, and now I'm on my way to Dodge City, Kansas. So I can go all the way out there with no cell connection at all and just use my offline maps. And all of your options work the same as they would with online. If I hit up here, these are my options. I can do add a route, search along the route, all that kind of stuff is all still there. Avoiding highways and tolls. I always, right here, you have your driving options, and those are still available. I always avoid highways and avoid toll roads. That way it routes me, it won't take me down the interstate. This is going to be through Kansas on Kansas state highways. It won't be on I-44, any of the interstate highways. So that's how you use your offline maps. As long as if you put in a destination, as long as you have a map that covers the area between where you're at and your destination, it'll work just like it does when it's online, when it has a data connection. You don't get your live updates when you're traveling. If there's a crash on the interstate, it'll let you know and route you around that automatically if you have live updates. But when you don't have a data connection and you're working with offline maps, well, you don't have live updates because you don't have any data. So that's the way I'm going to travel for a while, and we'll see how this works out with this rugged cell phone. I think it's going to be a vast improvement over what I've had, and I won't have to have my phone inside of the tank bag where I can't see it when it gets all fogged up. Leave it right on, mounted up out there in the rain, and it'll be just fine. Well, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope I helped somebody out. If you're considering a GPS unit, that'll give you something to think about, or at least something to look at on Amazon, if nothing else, at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's always good to have a mission. I appreciate you all hanging out with me. I invite you to come back and see me. We'll go somewhere and do something else. Till I catch up with you again, you all take care of yourselves. We'll catch you next time.